Human Capital and Strategic Communications. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Esti Opperman. I'm the Chief Financial Officer. Thank you.
Sorry. Morning, Minister and CEO and colleagues. My name is Sandile Maling. I'm the Group Executive for Smart Society within the CSR. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister, CEO, and all the guests. I'm Rachel Chikwamba. I'm the CSR Group Executive for Advanced Chemistry and Life Sciences.
Good morning, Minister and officials. My name is Motoli Masrumuli. I'm the Group Executive for Advanced Production and Security. It's mining, manufacturing, and defense and security. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister. My name is Ndumiso Timo. I'm the Strategic Partnerships Manager for the CSIR. I am also standing in for Dr. Kaven Naidu, who is the Group Executive Business Excellence and Integration. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Minister. My name is Hunadi Mukhalaka. I am also in the CSR Strategic Partnerships Office, and I'm responsible for our public and private engagements. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning to all the executives. My name is Balisa Khanani. I am in the Strategic Partnerships Office at the CSR. I'm a coordinator. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, CEO and colleagues. My name is Lise Hoitumeleng from Minister Chikunga's office.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Putima Bilebele. I'm the Chief Director responsible for advocacy and mainstreaming for the rights of persons with disabilities in the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, advisors. Good morning, CEO. My name is Dineo Mako. I'm responsible for monitoring, research, evaluation, and coordination in the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. Thank you.
Good morning, CEO, senior officials, executives. My name is Cindy Siwe Chikunga. I'm the minister in the presidency responsible for women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, CEO and executives. My name is Masuta Mukove. I'm a special advisor to Minister Chikunga. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Minister, Special Advisors, CEO, Group Executives, colleagues from the department. My name is Zandile Mtembu, the Chief of Staff in the Ministry of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disability. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister, CEO, and senior executives of CSIR, colleagues in DWIP. My name is Tsepe Mutumi. I'm the Special Advisor to Minister of Defense and Military Veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Minister Chikunga. Good morning, CEO, and to all colleagues from the ministry, the department, and the CSIR. My name is Nompendulo Mkajwa. I am the spokesperson to Minister Chikunga, and as the former chair of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science, and Innovation, I'm really excited to be here. Only good things can come out from working with the CSIR. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for those introductions. Before I hand over to the minister, I would like to just take us through the program of today, which is in the tables around the room. So the next item will be opening remarks by the minister. Then I will do an overview of the CSIR. There's then a signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the CSIR and I had this name for the first time, DWIP, from the advice, so I'll use it. Then there will be a photo opportunity following that which will end at 11 if everything goes according to plan. We'll then take a very short break for tea and bathrooms until 11:15. That will then be followed by exhibitions, which are in the Onyx room. There are a few technologies, Minister, that we would like our colleagues to show you in terms of the work that we do. They are indicated there: text-to-speech, ambiflow, Croica, as well as precision agriculture, information system. We'll have lunch then from 12:15 until 1 o'clock in this venue. And then after that, we'll then go for a facility tour. So there are 2 facilities that we will visit. One is the Biomanufacturing Industry Development Center, where we do a lot of work to support small and medium enterprises in the biomanufacturing sector. And then after that, we'll visit the pilot plant facility for the development of cannabis products. Again, there we do a lot of work to support small and medium enterprises that are trying to enter the cannabis market. As you know, it's a very growing market in South Africa. Then after that, after the tour, we will then have a transfer to the buildings that are being considered for rental by the department, and that should take us to the end of the tour of the visit, Minister. We're only showing you 2 facilities today. There's so much more that we can show, but we hope that over time, as we continue to engage, we'll be able to show more of what the CSR does. With that, I would like to now invite the Honorable Minister to give us her opening remarks. Minister, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO Dr. Tulane Lamini, your group executives, and other senior officials, and the entire CSIR delegation, senior officials from the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, special advisors, chief of staff, minister spokesperson, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and thank you for hosting us today. I think I must again introduce myself. I am Sindisiwe Chikunga, and I'm a South African. I'm in the ministry. I'm the minister in the presidency responsible for women, youth, and persons with disabilities. And from the onset, on behalf of the department, I would like to really convey our most sincere appreciation to Team CSIR for the work that you have been doing to support our department and the achievability of the priorities. During the handover from the previous minister, that is Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, as you have said, CEO, she also made me aware of the remarkable support that we have been receiving from the CSIR. And therefore, I believe that this meeting is in fact long overdue. We have requested this meeting because we believe there is a need to acknowledge, appreciate, strengthen, and concretize our collaboration on a number of departmental initiatives that aim to empower and transition women, youth, and persons with disabilities into catalysts for socio-economic empowerment. As a department, we have quite a mandate on our shoulders. We refer to those we serve as vulnerable groups because despite the presence of other departments and their programs, these groups still require a catalyst to take extraordinary measures and ensure they are not left behind. The very legitimacy of the democratic experiment, including our constitutional order, depends on both our actions and inactions in relation to this constituency. Due to plummeting livelihoods poverty levels that remain elusive, and an untenable cost of living crisis, democracies around the world, including ours, are facing a massive legitimacy crisis. South Africa, as envisioned in our constitution and the National Development Plan, is at a crossroad. The knock-on effects are being felt most acutely by the most vulnerable in our society, a constituency that looks to us for answers. 3 decades into our democratic dispensation, there is a general consensus that it cannot be business as usual. It is clear that the master's tools will not destroy the master's house. We urgently need new tools to cope with a threat landscape that is increasingly existential in nature, and to make the most of emerging opportunities that clearly require agility. The past only provides us with a limited blueprint for how we can guarantee a more just and humane future for this country and this continent. As scientists, now more than ever, your country needs you. Our labor market, industrial and social policy choices have, in the main, created an uneven society that facilitated an unprecedented concentration of income, wealth, power, and opportunities in the hands of those already well-placed, and a steady rise in chronic levels of social and economic insecurity for those who were already in the margins of society. Hence, inequality is one of the main challenges we face as a country. A genuine conversation about these issues should necessarily unsettle us. It cannot and should not be comfortable, as it must challenge the ever-present temptation to retreat into familiar ideas and structures where we feel comfortable and secure. There is everything wrong with merely glossing over what is essentially the tip of a dangerous iceberg. Youth participation in the economy, for example, cannot be reduced to hopping from one internship to another. Placing youth at the center of reindustrialization must be accompanied by fundamental changes in the structure, systems, and institutions, as well as patterns of ownership, management, and control of the wealth producing resources in favor of all South Africans, particularly the marginalized, vulnerable, and poor, who are primarily Africans and women. As South Africa, we are not alone at the economic crossroads. As you have witnessed across Europe, social unrest and political instability are no longer limited to emerging economies. We have to act now before it's too late. As a community of researchers, scientists, and industrialists, now more than ever, your country needs your capabilities. As early as 2019, President Ramaphosa identified youth unemployment as a national crisis that demands urgent, innovative, and coordinated solutions. I want to suggest that by national crisis, the President is not merely referring to the high rate of unemployment. We receive these shocking figures from Stats SA every quarter. What the President is highlighting is the structural nature of youth unemployment, and most importantly, the lack or absence of structural response on our part. His orders are for us to go above and beyond what we are accustomed to and begin reimagining more structural responses that do not rely solely on existing jobs. In response, a few principles must be made clearly and clear. Firstly, addressing youth unemployment requires targeted, sustainable interventions with clearly articulated exit opportunities. Secondly, we believe that when it comes to the youth, whatever we put on the table cannot seek a repeat of what did not work on the last 30 years. We have to do better. Thirdly, there is the disheartening reality of a rising wave of unemployment and underemployed graduates. I've recently learned that even students we send abroad who return with engineering degrees and others, some are sitting at home. This is an abnormal situation that demands both innovative and aggressive solutions. We've even given them a name, that these young people are called NEET, not in employment, education, nor training. That is how we're now defining these young people. We're currently facing a situation where serious infrastructure projects are in the pipeline, from small harbors development, rail, road, and rural bridge construction, to human settlement projects, water sanitation projects, including dam construction and maintenance, and energy infrastructure projects. It is about time that we insist that no labor is imported for these projects while unemployed graduates are sitting at home. Every project, from ideation to implementation, must include the upskilling, reskilling, and placement of young people through emerging industrialist apprenticeships. I was therefore really pleased to receive a progress report on the CSIR's ongoing support and contribution towards the implementation of the recently launched South African National Service Institute, SANSI, an institute that will be responsible for implementing an SANDF-led national service for South Africa. Through this initiative, we hope to achieve at least the following objectives. That is, to rally the entire government and society behind a de-siloed, nationally coordinated effort to reinforce our nation's ongoing battle against youth unemployment. We hope that will foster a deliberate and seamless skills to industry pipeline by training, capacitating, and empowering young emerging industrialists for a future of sustainable employment and innovative entrepreneurships. We hope to support the realization of the 7th administration's overarching strategic priorities as outlined by the President, including government-wide plans and targets. We hope to cultivate patriotic, resilient, and industrious communities while providing the youth with a sense of national service identity. Towards the end of 2023, Cabinet mandated my ministry to convene an urgent government-wide technical task team to bring together government departments, entities, and industry partners to enrich our SANSI investment case. The CSIR has been there every step of the way. In fact, SANSI was launched in this very building, and we're appreciating that. As we approach the submission of a progress report to Cabinet and to streamline its work, I've recently updated its terms of reference and allocated specific roles to champion departments and entities across government as follows. As the convener of the task team, I've delegated the role of convening and chairing the SANSI technical task team to the special advisor to the minister in the presidency. That is Dr. Masuta, and the special advisor to the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Mr. P. Modumi. The convening team, with the support of the CSIR team, will also oversee the research and development, industry stakeholder engagement, intergovernmental liaison, and reporting. The MOU we'll be signing today will formalize our recognition and appreciation of the CSIR as the project manager and project management, that is R&D and technical lead, supported by the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. The CSIR will continue to provide project management, project preparation, and technical leadership across all SANSI streams. This jointly coordinated project management office will also ensure that SANSI processes are compliant, ethical, and adhere to good governance. We're in the process of raising funding and all required resources to adequately fund this process and the professional teams that will be involved from our side and your side. The South African National Defence Force will continue to champion SANSI's character building, leadership development, and national service identity pillar. Champion departments for enterprise development, commercialization, and beneficiation will be the Department of Small Business Development and the Department of Trade, Industry, and Competition. The Department of Agriculture, the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development, the Department of Forestry, Fisheries, and Environment, as well as COGTA, will champion the farming and agricultural value chain streams supported by the CSIR Advanced Food and Agricultural Division and the Agricultural Research Council. Defense industries, aerospace, maritime, and public safety streams will be championed by the South African National Defence Force, CSIR, Defence Industry Division, AMSCO, the South African Aerospace, Maritime and Defence Industries Association, the South African Maritime Safety Authority, and the South African National Space Agency. For the rest of the SANSI streams, I will table the details of the strengthened terms of reference in the next meeting of the task team, which I intend to attend in person. The projected scale, pace, and qualitative impact of this initiative is expected to address the underlying drivers of a largely idle, demotivated, unemployed, and underemployed youth, particularly the over 3.6 million who are neither in employment, education, or training. We cannot have our youth hopping from one learnership to another, one internship to another. We need an emerging industrialist program that reaches every corner of this country. When it comes to women, they remain the face of poverty, disempowerment, and violence. Despite our best efforts, there are many ways through which gender inequality continues to be reproduced through systemic and structural forms of exclusion. I was therefore really pleased to receive a report on a jointly developed investment case for a tailor-made, value chain-driven agricultural cooperatives model. I'm told that the model will leverage some of the CSIR's intellectual property and advanced technologies to maximize economies of scale by training, tooling, capacitating, and preparing new and emerging farming individuals and community for market success. We're excited about this initiative and believe that cooperatives and emerging farmers, when done right, will serve critical vehicles for sustainable livelihoods restoration, wealth creation, and pathways out of poverty for those women who remain in the periphery of mainstream economic activities. During the opening of Parliament, the President announced massive plans to ramp up a green manufacturing sector over the next 5 years. To this end, we have conceptualized a series of emerging industrialist accelerator programs and intend to rally all relevant stakeholders, particularly the CSIR, our state-owned entities, and industry associations behind their implementation. These programs will target emerging women industrialists in key sectors, including energy security, maritime, defense, and aerospace industries, and agriculture, among others. Participating emerging industrialists will work alongside experienced industry associations, receiving support from ideation, through to product development, financing, market access, and commercialization pathways. To support these initiatives, we will be advocating for the establishment of an emerging industrialists fund that is dedicated to supporting beneficiation and transforming young people's ideas into productive economic activities. While investment must come from both the public and private sectors, we believe that the state must take the lead as the investor of first resort. As South Africa assumes the G20 presidency, CEO, disability inclusion will not be one of the things we do, will not be one of the things we do. It will be at the center of everything we do. We need partners in our effort to institutionalize and mainstream the interest and full participation of persons living with disabilities in all areas where decisions are made and power is exercised. We've just returned from the G7 meeting on disability and inclusion in Italy, and we drew some lessons there. For example, artificial intelligence and emerging technologies are neither inherently good nor inherently bad. It is how we deploy them that matters the most. Care, compassion, and inclusion must be at the center and not an afterthought. We know that the CSIR is doing a lot in the area of emerging technologies. We are concerned about the impact of climate change and on persons with disabilities. When disasters hit, many are caught helpless. With the extreme impact of climate change on persons with disabilities, we would like to create transformative regional and transnational knowledge networks that will serve as vital hubs for creating disability inclusive climate coalitions, alliances, and solutions. We've just assumed the chairship of the G20 Working Group on Women Empowerment. And I would really appreciate if a team from the CSIR could form part of a team that will work with us to make South Africa's G20 presidency count, particularly for the three groups we are responsible for. We would need you to be part of the whole journey, from ongoing designing to the implementation of the yearly program of action and schedule of activities. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to single out Dr. Kenny Tenza, Dr. Kevin Naidu, Ms. Bahle Tile, and all other CSIR colleagues that have worked with us to this point at risk without any payment. Once funding is secured, we're not promising to pay them. But when we have professionally managed cost center here, there will be no limit to what we can achieve together. The legacy of apartheid cannot be overcome with piecemeal and uncoordinated interventions. Apartheid was coordinated and structured, and so is its legacy. We need strategies to cultivate all our resources in a coherent and purposeful effort, and to put forward interventions that can sustain and can be sustained into the future. CEO, I thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you for having us. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for that very clear and inspiring message that you have shared with us this morning. I can once more perhaps confirm or reaffirm our commitment to continue on this journey under your leadership to realize the intentions of the very clear strategy that you have shared with us today. The CSIR is fully behind your efforts. So thank you so much, Minister. I would like to now do the overview of the CSIR. All right, so what I'll try to do in the next hour, hopefully I'll use less than an hour, is ready to introduce the minister and the colleagues from the department to what the CSIR is and to the work that we do. I must at the onset indicate that I will not be able to cover everything that we do as a CSR, given the breadth of the scope of work that we undertake, but hopefully I'll be able to give you a sense of who we are and the things that we do. Okay, this is not. It seems like this is stuck. Then if someone can help me. Let's see. All right, I want to start off by reflecting on our mandate. Minister, as you probably know, the CSIR it's a fairly old organization. We were actually established in 1945. So next year we're turning 8 years. 8 years of existence. And there's a story behind the creation of the CSIR. It had to do with the war, the recovery effort, economic growth, Commonwealth, and one doesn't have to go into that. But we established through an act of parliament, which is called the CSR Act. Now, Section 3 of the Act speaks to the mandate of the CSIR, which is reflected in this slide. It's a fairly broad mandate. And I think as I go through it, you'll understand why we say this. So what the mandate says is that we are expected to perform directed research and technological innovation. And we highlight the word directed, because unlike a university, we don't do research for the sake of doing research. Our research must be directed towards creating an impact in industry, in society, as well as in government. So we do what's called mission-oriented research. So we can't just embark on research because it's scientifically or exciting. There has to be a very clear understanding on our part in terms of the impact that we intend to make with the work that we do as an organization. And that our effort must lead to fostering scientific as well as industrial development in South Africa. Minister, in your remarks this morning, there are many times where you spoke about the need for reindustrialization and, of course, ensuring that this happens in a transformative and inclusive manner. This sits within the mandate of the CSIR, that our work must contribute towards industrial development within South Africa. We interpret this statement as saying that, I think it's fine now, yes. I think so, it's all good, thank you. We interpret this statement, Minister, as saying that our efforts must lead to industrial development. They must contribute towards the creation of a capable state, and they must, of course, assist us to address the societal challenges that we are facing as a country. So, for instance, our work with the ministry is, in a very limited way, perhaps a contributing towards the creation of a capable state. Using the resources that we have and the capabilities we have as a CSIR to contribute towards that. And we'll speak to other examples of how we do this. And that, of course, we must do this in partnership, because the work that we do as a CSR is not just for us. It's to serve industry, it's to serve government, it's to serve society. So we can only do that if we partner. We partner with government departments, we partner with industry, and of course, we partner with the relevant societies that we engage with. And that ultimately, everything that we do must contribute towards improving the quality of lives of the people of South Africa. Right at the onset of your remarks, Minister, you also reflected on the mandate of the ministry and the responsibility that it has. And I think this statement, which says that we must contribute towards improving the quality of lives of the people of South Africa, in my view, resonates very well with your message this morning. And how we do this, of course, that's the challenge. So it's a fairly broad mandate. Now, if you look at other science councils, you take the Medical Research Council. The Medical Research Council focuses on health-related research. The Agricultural Research Council focuses on agriculture, and one can continue. The CSR has a mandate which is very open-ended in terms of the areas of focus for the organization, which makes us really unique within the national system of innovation. We see ourselves as a multi-sectorial entity. So when you look at the work that we do, for instance, you'll see that we do work which impacts defense, which impacts health, which impacts agriculture, which impacts the chemical sector, and I can continue like that because of the type of mandate that we have been given as an organization. So we've reduced this mandate then into more tangible statements in terms of a vision and a mission statement. And our vision is that we see ourselves as accelerators of socio-economic prosperity in South Africa through leading innovation. And how we achieve this is by collaboratively innovating and localizing technologies whilst providing knowledge solutions for the inclusive and sustainable advancement of both industry and society. So we've chose the words that we use in our mission very, very carefully to try and perhaps make it much more clearer. What is it that we do and how we contribute towards the realization of our mandate? We talk about innovation, but we realize that we don't have to innovate for the sake of innovation. If there are solutions that exist in other parts of the world, we should be able to bring those into South Africa and then adapt them for our specific requirements. We also realize that our contribution is not only through technology, but also through knowledge. To advise government, to inform policy, to develop standards, to ensure that our government become informed users and buyers of technology. And there are various examples, again, I can go into in terms of how we live up to this role. Of course, issues of inclusivity, and perhaps later on we will reflect on this in terms of not from a racial point of view, but also on the issues you spoke about, Minister, in terms of gender inclusion, inclusion of young people, as well as inclusion of people living with disabilities. And of course, issues of sustainability are also very important in terms of what we do. We are guided by a set of values. These values spell out the word EPIC. I must indicate that we will share these slides with the Minister and the colleagues from the department, so you don't have to worry about taking too many notes, of course. We are guided by a set of values which spell out the word EPIC. And the word EPIC stands for excellence. We strive for excellence in everything that we do. And we challenge ourselves to ensure that when we deliver work, it is really work which stands out in terms of its excellence. Not perfection, but we strive for excellence in everything that we do. We see ourselves and we conduct ourselves as a people-centered organization. The way that we engage with each other, the way that we engage with our partners should be in accordance with this value of being people-centered. We conduct ourselves with integrity in the way that we conduct our business and the way that we engage with each other within the organization. And then lastly, of course, as I said when I was reflecting on our mandate, we believe in collaboration. We can only do the things that we do as a CSR if we collaborate with partners to achieve the impact that we wish to make. Our impact statement, what we try to achieve with our strategy. So 5 years ago, we developed a new organizational strategy with its sole purpose to ensure that we enhance our contribution to industrial development within South Africa, whilst not losing our responsibility towards creating a capable state. So what sits within then our strategy in terms of its intent is that firstly, we wish to contribute towards the inclusive growth of the South African economy. I think you've mentioned this as well, Minister, in your remarks. But at the same time, also want to grow the business of the CSR. And we've been able to achieve this, and we can share figures that show how we've delivered on this over the past 5 years. We want to contribute towards the sustainability of South African enterprises by improving their competitiveness through the technologies that we develop jointly with them to enable them to do that which they need to do in a much more competitive manner, both locally as well as globally. The third objective is that we want to create impact through the commercialization of intellectual property coming out of the CSIR, leading to the creation of new enterprises, supporting entrepreneurs. You spoke about this as well, Minister. We need to grow the economy. If we train people, we must also say, how do we then create jobs for the people that we are training? And we know, we've learned this in other parts of the world. Small and medium enterprises are the key engine for economic growth across the world. I don't think that we're going to have another Sasol equivalent, if I can use that as an example. We need to say, how do we support the creation of small and medium enterprises using the intellectual property that exists within the system? Because there is a significant amount of IP that we have within the system. How do we monetize that? To then create the employment opportunities, to create the industrialization opportunities for all people within our country. We think we contribute towards that. And then lastly, it's about driving the message about the relevance of innovation as a key enabler for economic development. I think, Minister, you put the challenge to us this morning in your remarks that the country needs scientists and researchers to now stand up and contribute towards addressing the problems that we are facing. And we'd like to rise to that challenge, Minister, with your leadership and support. And we realize this already as a CSIR, that science, technology, and innovation has a very critical role to play in terms of driving industrial development within South Africa. But also not just that, to also drive the creation of strategic independence, developing sovereign technologies that address the problems that we are trying to address as a country and reduce our dependence on technologies that we bring from other parts of the world. There are 5 pillars which support us in terms of achieving our strategy. We have an operating model which houses the strategic capabilities that we require to deliver on the work that we do. So those are the scientists, the engineers, and technologies that we've organized in a manner which creates synergies, which creates focus with regards to the work that we do as an organization. I'll come to that in a minute in terms of sharing that. We have to invest in relevant human capital. Without people, we cannot do the things that we do. People are the most important resource that we have as an organization. We are a knowledge institution. So we need to ensure that we invest in the development of people within the CSR, and we do that. And we realize that people are really the heart of what we do. But of course, people without infrastructure will not be able to do anything. So we also need to invest in ensuring that we have state-of-the-art infrastructure within the organization. As I said earlier, we've been around for 8 years. So there are some fairly aged facilities that we have, and we're in need of renewal and reinvestment to ensure that we continue to do the things that we need to do, Minister. It's about also investing in future-looking capabilities. The world around us is not standing still. We need to ensure that we continuously invest in capabilities that are relevant, not just today, but also for the future. And then lastly, of course, is to have a support environment of human resources, finance, ICT, and others that is digitally enabled, agile, cost-efficient, fit for purpose, and so forth. We've set ourselves 5 strategic objectives to achieve the intentions of our strategy, Minister. And these are reflected in the slide. The first 3 of the 5 speak to the outputs, the outcomes, and the impact that we wish to make. And then the last 2 are more internally focused, talking to the capabilities that we wish to develop in the organization, our governance processes, and how we ensure that we are financially sustainable. So the first strategic objective is about ensuring that as much as we are focusing on the translation of research and its impact in industry and government as part of our new strategy, we continue to invest in the development of transformative technologies, because this will ensure that we remain relevant in the future. But not just to develop technologies for the sake of developing them, to also drive the issue of diffusion of these technologies where they make impact. That this is built in to the work that we do right from the start. Again, speaking to the point I made earlier of ensuring that our work is indeed directed. Secondly, it's the role that we play in terms of supporting re-industrialization in South Africa, as you've already indicated, Minister. So this sits as a strategic objective within our organization. And when we speak to our indicators of performance, there are specific things that we measure to show how we are contributing towards re-industrialization. We measure things like the number of technologies that we've localized. We measure the number of SMMEs that we support, as well as joint technology development agreements that we sign with industry. Very tangible outcomes in terms of how we are contributing towards re-industrialization within South Africa. And we can share the numbers, perhaps, Minister, in terms of how we are delivering with regards to that. The third objective is about our role in supporting the creation of a capable state. And here we look at things such as our contribution to the development of standards, our contribution to the development of new policies, as well as the projects that we undertake to contribute towards the creation of a capable state. The fourth objective, as I said, is internally focused, looking at how we build and transform human capital and infrastructure. And then lastly, our diversification of income streams, maintaining financial sustainability, as well as good governance. If you 78% of our colleagues are Black South Africans. So we take issues of transformation very, very seriously in the organization and inclusion. 40% are female in the CSR total staff complement. 72% of our colleagues are what we refer to as the set base. So those are the scientists, engineers, and technologists. We also monitor this very closely to ensure that we keep a healthy balance between the support staff and the research core. If you look at the research core itself, 73% of the colleagues in the set base are also Black South Africans. I would like to believe that perhaps in the National System of Innovation, we are one of the most transformed organizations, and we drive this very deliberately to ensure that we transform the organization. 40% of the set base is female, because you know, Minister, within the, I would say, the STEM area, science, technology, and engineering, we have a challenge in terms of transformation, particularly when it comes to females. And we've been driving this very hard within the organization to ensure that we improve with regards to female representation within the set base. 2.6% of our colleagues live with some form or another of a disability. And 30% of the colleagues have master's degrees, and just under 20% have PhDs. We have a national footprint, as you can see in this slide. We are here in Pretoria today. We have facilities in Johannesburg where we do most of our mining-related research. We have a presence in Durban. We do biorefinery-related research because of the geographic location of that, as well as some of our environmental sciences work. We have a facility in Gqeberha at the Kruger Development Zone, which is looking at fibers, biofibers in particular. We have a facility in Stellenbosch. We do some of our defense-related work, small part of it. Most of it is here in Pretoria, as well as our environmental sciences work in Stellenbosch, including the work that we do to support the design of ports. We've got a very unique facility, the only one in the Southern Hemisphere, in fact, Minister, around where you can model various port designs. I'm sure you'll be interested in this based on your previous portfolio in transport. We do work, of course, with the Port Authority, but also we do a lot of international projects in terms of the design of port infrastructure. And we have a facility also in Cape Town where our the Center for High Performance Computing is located. Maybe going a little bit more deeper in terms of the breakdown, we thought you'll be interested in this, Minister. As I said, 46% of our colleagues are female in the total staff complement of the organization. If you look at management, representation in terms of breakdown by females, 52% of the positions in the professional categories are occupied by females within the CSIR. If you look at youth, that is people under 35 years, 35% of our staff complement is made up of youth, and 2.6%, as I've already indicated, made up of colleagues with some disability. If I look at the outputs of the CSIR over the past 5 years, so there's a number of things that we measure in our scorecard. We have about 31 indicators of performance. And here, I just reflect a few, Minister and colleagues. We produced just over 2,000 publications. So these are not leaflets. So these are peer-reviewed papers. These are books. These are book chapters. Just to ensure that the work that we do is really at the cutting edge. We had filed 29 priority patents, with just over 100 patents granted to the CSIR. We developed over 279 what we call technology demonstrators. So these are technologies that we have matured to a high level of maturity, including demonstrating their applicability in the environment in which they will be applied. So those technologies are now close to being commercialized. But I want to just bring your attention to the next indicator here, Minister, which is the number of license agreements that we sign with industry. We've signed 43. So there's a big difference between what we think is ready for commercialization and what we are able to commercialize through license agreements. Hence my point earlier that as a system, we sit with a large number of intellectual property that we can use to drive reindustrialization within South Africa, to create entrepreneurs. And the question becomes, why are we not seeing enough of the technology demonstrators coming out of an organization like this CSIR being commercialized? So there are systemic problems that we need to address. One of those being the resources that you require to take what sits as a technology demonstrator in the CSR to a point where it can be commercially exploited. The last mile of de-risking requires significant investments. I'll give an example, Minister. There's a project that we are doing now with a German company which has operations in South Africa. It's in the radar. They use this, you're probably familiar with it as well, in ships, in the Navy in particular, to detect motion and other vessels. This company is already in this business, and they are interested in developing the next generation of this technology. And they approached us as a CSR to work with them in the development of this product. The joint investment, just in one piece of IP between us and them, is just under R500 million. We've put in over 100 million rands of our own money, beyond the amount we invested in the early stage research, just to commercialize this. And they are putting in over 300 million in this one piece of IP. So we talk significant investments that are required to transition from what we have here to a point where we've got something that is being commercially exploited. I think it's a very key issue that we need to address if we are to see a higher level of uptake of intellectual property coming out of the CSR and other science councils and universities to the point where it gets commercialized. And we need to do this in a much more coordinated manner. We need acceleration, we need incubation facilities. And here I'm not talking about, an office with a computer and a laptop. No. We need clean rooms if we are developing health-related products. These are very expensive facilities. We need piloting facilities if we are developing, chemicals. And we need to invest in those facilities as a country. And unfortunately, we are not doing enough of that. And these are some of the structural challenges. I think when you're talking about we need to think differently to see a different outcome, I think this is the kind of different thinking that we require, in my view, to ensure that we can see a higher rate of uptake of the intellectual property that we generate as a country, and to see it being utilized to drive industrialization within South Africa. We have localized 72 technologies over the past 5 years. So here we're talking about technologies that we were importing from other parts of the world that we are now producing in our own country. I'll give a simple example. We worked with a company called Hal Langmo. This company makes pipes, large pipes, which are used to transport water, chemicals, and so forth. So they work, for instance, with Transnet and other big companies. Now, one of the things that they do to protect these pipes, they coat them with a special polymer to prevent them from corroding, from the chemicals or whatever fluid it is that they are carrying. Before COVID, they used to bring this special polymer from abroad. I think they used to bring it from Australia, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Chikombe. But because of the disruption in value chains during COVID, they couldn't access this material. So we worked with them to develop the formulation for this polymer, as well as the process to impregnate it into the pipes. Now, this is being manufactured locally by a local company using IP coming out of the CSR. And there are many other examples that one can speak to. When we talk about localization, it's that kind of work that we do in terms of ensuring that we, of course, improve also our strategic independence with regards to access to some of these products. We've had over 150 joint technology development agreements with industry. We supported just under 600 small and medium enterprises in the past 5 years in various fields through the work that we do. And we've enabled them to enter market with the products that they have in mind. Some of these were based on CSR IP, but a lot of them were bringing in their own ideas, and we work with them to convert those into viable products and businesses. We've contributed to just over under 100 national policies, just over 60 national standards, as well as executed over 500 projects to support the development of a capable state. So these are the projects that we undertake with SOEs, with government departments, with municipalities, on specific areas that contribute towards improving the capabilities and the capacities within these different entities of government. Minister, we're very proud of our governance within the organization. Over the past 15 years at least, and one can go back even further than that, we've had a clean audit outcome from the Auditor General. We guard this very jealously, and we ensure that within our organization we do the things that we need to do in a manner which is in keeping with our values, and one of those being a value of integrity. We are, in terms of our BBBEE, we are a level 1 contributor in terms of BBBEE. I don't think that there's any other science council, or maybe even an SOE, that has this level in terms of BBBEE. I can mention to you, Minister, that in 2019, EE level was 4. So there was very deliberate effort on the part of the organization, under the leadership of the executive, to improve our performance in terms of BBBEE. Not just for the number, because we see this as an imperative of what we need to do as a country, as an organization, as part of contributing towards improving the quality of lives of the people of South Africa. We report, of course, to the Ministry of, it's now Science, Technology and Innovation. We have a board which consists of committees. We have a committee which is called the Research Ethics Committee. It's a committee that reports to the board, made up of independent experts to guide us on matters of research ethics, to ensure that we are in keeping with the National Health Act in terms of matters pertaining to research ethics. as well as, of course, other standards that we need to comply with. We have a set of executive portfolios, which perhaps I can spend a minute on. So we have a portfolio looking at compliance, legal compliance and business enablement, which is headed by Advocate Esme Kennedy. We have human capital and communications, headed by Mr. Andile Mabindisa, who's here with us today. Finance, ICT, and strategic procurement, headed by Mrs. Esther Opperman, who's also with us today. Business excellence and integration, Dr. Kaved Naidu, who is unfortunately not with us today, traveling in India. Then we have what we refer to as the core business of the CSIR, in addition to the support functions. Advanced Chemistry and Life Sciences is led by Dr. Rachel Chikwamba, who is here. Advanced Production and Security, led by Dr. Mdodi Maseramole, who's also here. And then lastly, Smart Society, led by Dr. Sandile Malinga. I'll go in a bit more detail in terms of what sits within each one of these divisions. We refer to these as divisions. Then we have something that we call CSR C Cubed. It's a CSR wholly owned company that we launched last year in October, whose sole purpose and mandate is to drive the commercialization of intellectual property coming out of the CSIR, to identify entrepreneurs with a good understanding of the business, who also understand the technology, and who can make a business out of the IP coming out of the CSIR. To then also bring in investors who must bring in the capital to create and to invest in those enterprises, all the way from developmental finance to de-risk the IP, up to the point where you have venture capitalists who will come in as the enterprise matures in terms of its business. Within each division, Minister, we have clusters. Each division has 3 clusters. The architecture is the same. So there are 3 clusters in each division, which are synergistic in nature, and I'll show this in the next slide or two. We also have dedicated capacity for business development and commercialization. Minister, I'll show this in a slide. We only receive just over 20% of our income as a grant from the state. We have to go and generate close to 80% of our income in the market through contract research, by responding to tenders, by submitting project proposals. That's how we get funded. Close to 80% of our income is generated in that manner. So we need to ensure that we've got a very strong capability for business development within the organization to ensure that we can generate the income that we require. But also to look at issues of commercialization, that the work that we do in the clusters can be commercialized. Hence, of course, we've created this special a vehicle to enable us to do that. Then within each division, we have what we refer to as an industry advisory panel. This ensures that the work that we do is aligned with the needs of industry in particular, because that is an area of emphasis for us as part of our new strategy. This is the CSR board, made up of board members who bring a diversity of experience and expertise to guide the work that we do as an organization. This is the executive team, which you've met, also highly very competent with degrees, Advocate Kennedy, LLM and a Master's in Business, Bachelor of Social Sciences and Postgraduate Diploma, Mr. Mabindisa. Dr. Naidu is a PhD in Aeronautical Engineering. Dr. Chikwamba, PhD in Genetics and MBA. Dr. Maserimole, PhD in Mathematics and an Executive National Security Program. I got that right this time. ENSP. Esther Opperman is a Chartered Accountant. And of course, Dr. Sandile Malinga, PhD in Physics. So these are colleagues who are very well established in their domains, leaders in science and leaders in business who are looking after and stewarding this organization. If I move on to our operating model, Minister, just to say a bit more about our divisions. So we have 3 divisions in the CSIR, as I said. The first two divisions are what we refer to, contain clusters which we refer to as industry advancement clusters. So these are clusters which have a very specific sectorial focus. Then the last set of clusters are what we refer to as industry and society enabling clusters. So they've got capabilities which cut across a number of sectors of the South African economy. So if you look at the first two divisions, we have a division of advanced chemistry and life sciences, which has three clusters. The one cluster focusing on advanced agriculture and food. We have a focus on chemicals as well as health. Now, the way that we put these clusters together is to try and create opportunities for collaboration and to draw on the synergies, the natural synergies that exist between these clusters. You can see in advanced agriculture and food, you need chemicals, you need fertilizers, you need chemicals that you use to prolong the shelf life of the produce that you make in agriculture. Of course, issues of health and agriculture are interrelated. If you look at the next division of advanced production and security, here we've got a focus on manufacturing, mining, as well as defense and security. Again, there are natural synergies between those. Then smart society focuses on what we refer to as smart places, which looks at the built environment, the natural environment, issues of climate change, water, energy sit within that. We have smart mobility, which looks at the whole logistics sector within South Africa, ensuring that we've got an effective, efficient, and integrated logistics sector. And then lastly, we have next generation enterprises and institutions, which is really about the digital transformation of industry as well as government. So things like e-government, for instance, will sit within that. So this is the work that we do. It falls into these sectors of the South African economy. And of course, we also have these capabilities which cut across these sectors, but also speak to some of the societal issues that we are trying to address. If I move to the CSR business model, I mentioned earlier about our revenue streams. Last year, our turnover was 3.2 billion rands. If you look at the breakdown of that, 58% came from work that we did with the local public sector. So we do a lot of contract work with government departments. We work a lot with the Department of Defense and military veterans through a very interesting model that maybe we can talk about later on. In fact, our view is that the model that we have of collaboration with the Department of Defense should be adopted as a blueprint in terms of how institutions like the CSR and others should be working with government in the main. We only receive 22% of our income as a grant from the state. We do a lot of work with private sector. Last year, 7% of our income came from the private sector, just over 250 million. 10% came from the international sector. It was just over 300 million. So we do a lot of work also in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, as well as in the Americas. And then 3% from royalty income, investment income, and other income sources. So what are the things that we do then as a CSR, and what do we produce? So we do technology development. So we develop technologies that can find application in various areas. We do product development. So we can develop products that can go into the market. Here we give examples of, flavors and fragrances and biocides and cosmetic products. We develop ventilators. For instance, during COVID, Minister, as you know, one of the challenges that we faced as a country was that we had a shortage of ventilators. In fact, most of the ventilators, if not all of the ventilators that we had, were in the private sector hospitals. And most of our public sector hospitals did not have ventilators. In fact, that was a significant risk for us, and we couldn't import these from anywhere in the world. So we came together with our partners, and within 6 months, we had a design that was approved, and we started manufacturing ventilators here at the CSR with our partners. We produced over 18,000 ventilators that were distributed to almost all the hospitals in South Africa that required ventilators. And of course, saved a very large number of lives in the process of that. So we developed products that actually go into the market. Another one is Ambiflow. We will show this later during the exhibition, Minister. It's a very interesting technology. I'm sure you'll be interested in it as well, based on, I think, your previous professional experience. It's a technology that can be utilized to reduce infant mortality by providing a point-of-care device that can be used in rural hospitals. And the result that we'll share with you, Minister, will show how important and the impact that this technology has been able to make in terms of reducing infant mortality in the clinical trials that we've done with this particular product. We develop customized solutions. Here we given, in this picture, we show a solution that we developed with SunParks that we deployed at the Kruger National Park to try and curb the problem that we had of rhino poaching. And through the deployment of this technology, we saw a significant reduction in terms of rhino poaching, but also the ability for the Kruger National Park to apprehend poachers that were trying to cause harm to our wildlife. We provide evidence-based decision support to government, but also to industry. And there are various solutions that we have in this area. For instance, on fire, we have something called the Advanced Fire Information System. It's an online-based platform that you can subscribe to, and you can then draw reports that give you information about active fires, but also the risk of fires in certain areas. We have subscriptions from across the world to this particular platform. We have something called the Oceans and Coastal Information Management System, which we use to support our fisheries sector in South Africa to understand the potential of algal blooms, for instance, along the ocean, which impacts, of course, the performance of that sector, but also to look at the population of fish and the activities along our coastline. So there are various solutions of this nature that we develop within the CSR to inform decision-making by government, but also by industry as well. We also have within the CSR national facilities for test and evaluation. We have for instance, what we call wind tunnels. It's the only facility in the Southern Hemisphere that we use, to test various a system in terms of their aerodynamic design, aeroplanes, vehicles, and so forth. And we do large projects internationally also using this facility. We host a number of programs within the CSR on behalf of government departments, but also industry. We host, for instance, something called the Impact Catalyst, which is a joint initiative between a number of mining houses to look at local economic development in the mines where they operate. They pull their resources together, and we're running that program, and we're managing that program as a CSR. It's a very impactful program, and perhaps we can brief the minister on this as well, because there's a component of youth, component of women in terms of the implementation of this program. We do industry development and incubation facilities. We've got industry development and incubation facilities within the CSIR. The Biomanufacturing Industry Development Center is one of the facilities that we'll be visiting a minister today. We do technology licensing. We provide specialized training, as well as we also offer highly specialized services to industry in particular. So our collaboration model is based on these 4 pillars. We collaborate with partners in joint technology development, in licensing, contract research and development, as well as the development of human capital. Now, if you look at the SMMEs that we support, Minister, I thought we should just include the slide. And the companies that we support through our SMME support initiatives. If you look at ownership, using 50% ownership as a marker, 50% black ownership, 69% of the companies that we support have at least 50% plus black ownership. 20% have 50% plus youth ownership, 30% have 50% plus women ownership, and 1.8% have 50% plus ownership by people living with disabilities. And if you look at our license agreements, 61.5% of the licenses that we signed are with companies that are 100% owned by blacks, and 15.4% are with companies that are 100% owned by women. There are a number of initiatives that we drive within the CSIR, which are focusing on women, youth, as well as people with disabilities. And we thought we'd just reflect ever so briefly on this. We have got a number of development programs that we have in the CSIR, focusing on our own internal capacity. And I mentioned in this slide, we've got the Leadership and Management Development Program. I think the colleagues who prepared this slide, who assisted me with this slide, we're trying to test if I can remember all these acronyms that they've put up. So we have the Leadership and Management Development Program. This is a program that we started about 2 years ago. It gives the total of the number of colleagues who participated in this program, 206. The Accelerated Research and Development Program, one of the things that we had to focus on, Minister, around transformation, is transformation of the senior cohort of researchers within the CSIR, both in terms of race and gender, because we were lagging behind significantly with regards to that. So we had to implement a targeted program focusing on transformation of the senior research cohort within the CSIR. The ARDP is focusing on the chief researcher cohort, providing targeted support to females as well as black South Africans so that they can progress to the highest level of research within the organization. The PRDP focuses on principal researchers. We have a graduate in training program, 155 colleagues that we took in as part of our graduate in training program. The significance of the graduate in training program is that we bring in graduates, we take them through a development program within the CSIR to enable them to receive the certification. For instance, if you're an engineer, you need to be certified by AXA. Now, you go and apply for a job, and the job requirement is that you must be certified. But how do you get certified if you don't have a job? So there's that problem that we need to deal with. So we try to address that with this particular program. Of course, it's 155, but the need is is significantly more than that. We have a studentship program. We've got what's called work integrated learning. We participate in the Youth Employment Service as a CSIR. I think we're also, again, one of the very few public sector, state-owned entities that participate in the Youth Employment Service. And over the past 4 years, we had 282 participants in our Youth Employment Service. I think we've been able to employ, if I'm not mistaken, just under 16%, 163, exactly, of the participants in our Youth Employment Service. Thank you very much. And so the figure is actually more than what I mentioned. It's over 50% then that we've been able to absorb within the organization. We also have internship programs, and we take your point, Minister, that this cannot be the solution to the problem. It's putting pen tape on a much more serious issue. And this needs to feed into something which is much more sustainable and enduring. And unfortunately, we need to create that, that which will absorb the participants of the various internship programs. We also have a very large and extensive bursary program, that we run within the organization, using our own resources, but also working with our partners in the National System of Innovation. We work with the SETAs, we work with other government departments to manage targeted bursary programs. This gives a figure in terms of the number of participants that we've had over the past 5 years. We also have a number of leadership and management development programs, but maybe I'll skip this slide. We've got a number of staff skills development programs that we have within the organization, and we invest significantly in terms of this particular initiative. I think over the past 5 years, we've invested over 8.7 million rands in terms of staff development within the CSIR. Then also we've got programs that are looking at science, engineering, and technology development programs, as I said, looking at chief researchers, principal researchers, as well as the other levels of development within the CSIR. If you look at the breakdown then, in terms of particularly women participation in these programs, in terms of the GIT, 72% of the participants are female, 67% in our youth employment service, 34% in terms of our studentships. Our bursary program, 48% of the participants, the CSR bursary program, are female, 67% of the DSI, IBS bursary program, and 44% of the MESITA program. In terms of internships, 60% female, 38% in our work integrated learning program, as well as 64% in terms of our postdoctorate program that we run within the CSR. So again, Minister, to indicate the percentage of women participation in our pipeline development programs. We also ran last year an entrepreneurship development program within the CSR. You spoke about this, Minister, also, in terms of developing entrepreneurs. I mean, we ran a call where we invited South Africans to apply for this program. We received over 450 applications for people looking for opportunities to develop their entrepreneurial skills. We could only absorb 20 because of the limited capacity. So there's a huge need for training and development in terms of entrepreneurial skills. And I think, Minister, as you're talking about, growing, emerging industrialists, we need to look at these issues of skills development, that are necessary to ensure that these industrialists indeed succeed in the market. This is the entrepreneur development program. In fact, at the end of this program, the IDC, as well as CEDA, pledged investment into some of the entrepreneurs that participated in this program. I'd like to stop here, Minister. It was really just to give you a broad overview of who we are and what we do and how we work with our partners and how our work fits into the broader intentions of government. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Minister, I don't know if perhaps we can take the next 5 minutes for any questions or comments before we move to the next item on our agenda, which is the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, CEO. I think it's a comment and also an appreciation in terms of what has been shared with us. I'm going to be a bit guilty because I'm from the monitoring of the mainstreaming of women, youth, and persons with disabilities across the state. So we're responsible for understanding whether institutions of the state, they mainstreams the priorities of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. So somewhere I had a question because I saw a lot of internal changes and I was, when do we get to the external one? So we got to the youth pipeline. So that's very encouraging. I think I wanted to really show appreciation because one of the responsibility of a framework that the department has, which is the Gender Responsive Planning, Budgeting, Monitoring, Evaluation and Auditing Framework, is about making sure that institutions of the state, internally and externally so, they make sure that they facilitate for the priorities of this group. If you would remember when the minister was making the remarks, one of the things that she highlighted was that where we are currently is that after 30 years, when we were saying things are being mainstream, we're having difficulty with seeing those. So we need to be very explicit, because even after 30 years, it's still difficult to count where are the women, where are youth, where are persons with disabilities. And I think sometimes when we are preaching or talking to our work, we come across as if, like these activists, you're going to get us tired. We're tired of hearing of you. But if you reflect on the results of what has been happening for the past 30 years, it becomes difficult for us to account for where are the women, where are the youth and persons with disability. You've indicated one of the challenges we have is representation in decision-making position. You're sitting at 27% in terms of management. It remains a challenge across the state. You look at DG representation in the country, I think it's a similar percentage. In private sector, it's a similar percentage. But when you zoom into your professional component, you're over 50%. Then the question is, where's the translation of that 50% into management? I think there is an understanding that it's a hierarchy, it's a pyramid structure, but it will also be encouraging to see how do you translate the professional output that you have into the management component. Our view is always that representation in decision making also facilitate for the interest and the voices of whether it's women, youth, and persons with disability. And I think hence it's important to also have that representation. One of the things, I thought I had one point, but the more I speak, I realize there's more, is that with the percentage that we are seeing, it shows one of the challenges we're sitting with from a monitoring point of view is the collection of disaggregated data. And I'm seeing is displayed when we send requests to say data must come through, doesn't really come through. So probably there's some bottleneck somewhere. So now I'm tapping into a knowledge space. How do we assist each other to make sure that this data flows through? That even our department has access to data that you are projecting to us to say this is where the CSIR is. Because we have a responsibility as a department to report back to Cabinet to say, in terms of all the entities of the state, the department, this is where the status is in terms of facilitating for mainstreaming of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. But I think my point was just to acknowledge and appreciate that there is work that is happening from a mainstreaming point of view. And I know the results are coming because we've put a lot of effort in a targeted approach. And it shows that somewhere we need to question the mainstreaming because the targeted approach seems to show better results than the mainstreaming approach. So hence we want to be explicit, I think, in many of our conversations, because when we say we're mainstreaming only, we seem to not really see quick results. But it is an approach because we're trying to not change system, but work within the system that exists. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, CFO.
Okay, thank you very much and much appreciation for the presentation. It was very enlightening, in actual fact, an eye-opener, especially when you look at the area around the rights of persons with disabilities. But what I've picked up is that, there's areas where we might, as we grow our relationship, actually, try and focus on, which is an area which we seem to be lagging behind a lot in South Africa, especially with regard to issues around universal design and access. I was quite interested when you spoke about the clusters around smart places or spaces, and looking at the challenge that we have around the issue of universal design and access in South Africa. In actual fact, we do not have a capacity minister in terms of trained, qualified specialists who deal with universal design and access. Most of our expertise in the space within the built environment, as an example, is international. We lag behind a lot on that. And as we're trying to ensure that accessibility barriers are dealt with, especially for persons with disabilities on universal design matters, we're lagging behind in that space. And surely there might be some collaboration that we can work on. But it's not limited to the built environment, but it's also issues of accessible communication methodologies and devices, which then goes into issues of assistive devices, and which I think in terms of your clusters, maybe the next generation health could assist us in that regard, because we do not have a central base where we manufacture assistive devices that persons with disabilities, be it from well, we're seeing what is surfacing internally, but not in the country, not necessarily at an advanced stage, issues of hearing aids and so forth. But when it comes to issues of other assistive devices, including wheelchairs, as a matter of fact, we're still lagging behind, and as a result, we've registered a huge backlog. So it's an area that we always think that we can do something and perhaps even support new enterprises. We've seen students who have come up with creative ways of improving even the current wheelchairs that we have for persons with mobility challenges. Yeah, and also still in the next generation health, issues of dermatology for persons with albinism, for instance. We're still importing a lot of products, and which are not really responding to the needs with regard to especially issues of persons with albinism, with current climate changes and so forth. So it's an area that would scientifically want to have assistance in from yourselves as experts in that area. So for now, I just tapped into what I saw as areas that we could actually work with CSIR on. Yeah, thank you very much.
Good morning, CEO. Really thank you so much for that presentation. The excitement about working with the CSIR was on the basis of an incomplete picture of what the CSIR is capable of. What you've presented reinforces that aspiration, but I'm sure beyond this meeting, we have a far greater idea of where the country can leverage the reach, the willingness, and the developmental dividend of scientists and industrialists who are working here. I think South Africa can, in a large way, be fixed from here, primarily because of the willingness, the integrity, the unquestionable integrity, and the applied. I have heard of mission-oriented research. I have never heard of directed research. And I think I'm going to replace mission-oriented with directed, because it's a more deliberate and more purposeful intervention. So we are deeply indebted to yourselves. When we saw your lineup of colleagues who are coming to meet with us, we even brought reinforcement from defense. At least we could match up with the level of seriousness with which you've taken our initiatives. And Minister, just to say that the extent to which your colleagues have worked with us to help design, improve our work and our initiatives to the level where we are comfortable to pitch it at cabinet is testament from where I'm sitting of just their commitment to the country beyond the organization and their professional advancement. And we want to thank them for that as well. That's my contribution, Minister.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, CEO, for a comprehensive presentation. My one, when CEO was presenting, Minister, I saw the number of IPs that have been developed out of this institution. And the question that I have is that with this kind of intellectual property and the patent that we have, what seems to be the challenge with the commercialization of what already CSIR has done? Why is government not taking up or funding or directing resources to make sure? Because this will actually respond to many challenges that we have. And then secondly, Minister, looking at what the CSIR has done, I'm thinking before this, it was under a Department of Higher Education and Science and Innovation. Now, was there a partnership to actually influence the curriculum of higher institution of higher education curriculum? Was there that a platform? Because if there was, how is it possible that we have graduates who are unemployable and who are not market relevant? And if there is that platform, maybe there is something else that we need to know. If there was not, maybe CSIR, it's time that they consider doing that. But thirdly, Minister, I'm glad that we are here. And one of the challenges that we have, it's mainstreaming the 3 constituencies that we have as a department under our mandate to the economic sector specifically for livelihoods. Now, if we are here, Minister, I think we are in the right institution where they will assist us to make sure that we don't only mainstream within the public sector as government, but also the private sector, because I believe that they are so relevant and they do have the resources and the capabilities and capacity to be able to mainstream. Maybe they could share what is it that hinders the mainstreaming efforts with all the legislation and all the policies and the instruments that are there. Thank you.
I didn't have any intention to speak, but thanks very much, CEO and colleagues, for the presentation. Minister, for us in the defense family, the CSIR is not a stranger. As the CEO has indicated, we've been working together for a number of years and have a specific projects for the improvement of our military systems, for the improvement of the defense industry in general, and to see what further advances can be done. So the partnership that the Minister will be entering into with the CSIR adds to the closeness of the relationship that government should have. And now, in particular, in this case, with the South African National Service Institute, which we have walked the journey with the CSIR from the very beginning. And we are actually looking forward that into the future, we will still be together as we go into a deeper, beyond phase 1 of what the SANDF has to do, but into specific different areas of the CSIR in the different streams that are within SANSI. But thanks very much, CEO and CSIR.
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Minister. In fact, I was already responding to some of the questions from this side in my head. So I think it would be wrong for me to say anything at this point in time, Minister. Thank you.
Thanks, Minister, and thanks, CEO, for the presentation. I think what we have actually taken from the presentation is that, in South Africa, we are rich in terms of data and also in terms of knowledge. But, we fall short, particularly when it comes to the issue of implementation. And, CSIR mandate, which is very broad and which cut across various sectors, is something that we can actually leverage on, particularly taking into account the fact that empowerment and development of young people, women, and persons with disabilities is also a responsibility of everyone, various sectors, different government departments, private sector, and civil society. So it is very important. In my view, I will actually even propose that there are pockets of excellence, that are actually in existence. What is required is for us to be able to replicate the models that are working. Maybe we need to actually conduct a joint assessment where we will actually check what is it that is working and how can we replicate and ensure that we expand, to reach our various, target groups. And also the other issue is what has just been raised on the extent to which the evidence that we are collecting actually impacts, for an example, on our human resource plan, because that is where is actually a challenge, that we continue, we get rich data, but then when it comes to implementation, we continue doing what we have always been doing, training young people in areas that are not in demand. So there is actually a need to ensure that, we move from conceptualization towards practical implementation of what we are doing. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And thank you, CEO. We welcome your presentation. I brought along with me this team because they actually are leading programs in the department, and I thought that they shouldn't get it from us, they must hear it from yourselves, so that out of what you tell us, they can then identify those areas that they think they can collaborate with yourselves. In my speech, I refer to exit opportunities. Which sometimes we do not know as to where they are. Hence, maybe the questions that were asked, the relevance of curricula that are offered by different institutions of higher learning vis-a-vis the market requirements. As government, we said young people must go to tertiary institutions, in particular universities. They responded. They qualified, graduated. There was, and there is still no exit opportunities. So we did not think about that to say when they complete, where are they going? We send them to international universities. When I was at Transport, we're proud to send young people to the World Maritime University, for instance, every year. I think they're still doing it even now, every September. But when coming back, we can't absorb them. Hence, my emphasis on the issue of exit opportunities. I sit here now with CSIR, because as we say this, but I still don't have the answer to say what are the exit opportunities so that we can then direct our young people, because we know for sure that on completion, they will be absorbed there and there and there. And the question I have is if it is possible to know that and to have that information as real, concrete, reliable information. And I say that because what keeps me awake at night is youth unemployment in general, but graduates unemployment. CEO, I've attended some graduations, but I'm getting discouraged now because it pains you to see young people walking there and parents ululating, jumping, when you know for sure that these young people, a year later, they'll be sitting at home. And that is why my emphasis is on exit opportunities, that as we direct them to go, whether to TVET colleges or universities or wherever, but we know for sure as to where the opportunities are. We will be directing them so that they get absorbed. That will therefore be my question to say, is it possible? Is it something possible? Does it exist anywhere in the world that we can have such information and such data? We had MOUs as transport with a number of tertiary institutions. Before COVID-19, we knew that, for instance, for those students that we sent to the University of Zululand, the companies around Richards Bay would absorb almost 90% of them during their first year and the 10% during the second half of the year. We knew it. And therefore, we send them there to do transport-related courses because we knew about the market that was going to absorb them. As a matter of fact, they were actually telling us as to the numbers that exit their companies, whether by means of retirement, death, illness, and so on. And therefore, the numbers that we could actually send to the university was based on that. And therefore, they were being absorbed. I'm not sure that that is possible. Such information is possible. Because I think somehow, yes, we're producing people, but we're in the dark. And that is why we are surprised to have now the need. I don't like the word, but we have them. It's a new concept, but it exists. It would have been better if you're talking about young people who have nothing. These are young people with metric. They can go to tertiary institutions that are not absorbed by them. They have qualifications from tertiary institutions. But also, I would want to check, because of your experience, for instance, from what you said in raising funds, CEO, for the SANSI project. Is it possible that we can work together using your experience? Because surely for SANSI to take off, we'll need more resources. We are in engagement with institutions such as UNDP, for instance. They've actually indicated to us that they can fund our projects. However, it will be important that we are able to package those projects, because no one is going to fund us when we just say, please give us money, there's SANSI, and say, what about SANSI? And we have not packaged those projects. Is it possible that that can be done? If it is done, it's done soonest, so that we're able to approach them. Because with, of course, the G20 coming, many departments are approaching those institutions. But fortunately, they've actually practically and in words have actually committed to say they would want to work with us, but they can't just give us money simply because we say, please give us money. They will want to see those projects that are packaged properly. And our wish is that we do that. We've also seen the president, maybe my very last question. We've seen the president signing the Public Procurement Act. It's exciting us, but it can also be a disappointment if we've not planned properly for it. It is our wish that working together with yourselves, we can see some combined, innovative ways of benefiting out of this legislation, particularly for our sectors, those that we represent, the youth, persons with disabilities, and women as well. And if it can be done, would be very happy to see it happening, so that we maximally benefit out of that legislation, which we believe it has the potential to assist us. But lastly, what is the future of work with the robotics, likely to probably do more of the work that the people are doing, human beings are doing. What then becomes the future of work, I think, for us, if we're to be able to respond to that question and be assisted to respond to that question, we have people that are working for Gibela, for instance, they are manufacturing trains. But next day, it will be robotics that will be doing that, because in other countries, it's already robotics that are doing that. It's one person who's sitting somewhere, and that is all. The rest of the people are no longer there. We've seen this in Europe when we were there to visit some of the plants, particularly. I think it was BMW plant. What is the future of work in South Africa? And therefore, which areas should we actually be focusing on in order to grow the potential of those areas? Because they are likely to continue to be the source of work for our young people going forward. Maybe some of them might be areas that in the past were not of interest to many people. Those are my just few comments and questions maybe to yourselves. But CEO, we really appreciate this engagement with yourselves. And I think the question asked by the Chief of Staff to say, is government actually taking up some of your work that you're doing here in the manner that would make you happy? You can actually tell us, even if we're government, we can close the doors, and if it is gossip, so that you say that we are or we are not using this institution maximally as government as we're supposed to and benefit out of it. If that is the case, of course, if we are, then it's fine. But I say that because I also come from transport. We've had all the problems of potholes and all that, using the most expensive ways of patching potholes. And we've not, I don't think, but had time to actually make use of CSIR for such products that can help South Africa do the work and achieve, but at a far less cost. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister, and colleagues for those comments and inputs. I think these are very incisive comments, and the questions themselves also, we might not be able to answer them today. And of course, we hope that as we work together, we'll be able to, to respond to some of these challenges that you are putting forward as issues that require consideration, I think, between ourselves. I think we take the comment on access to data as part of the reporting and monitoring requirements and evaluation. I think, we can provide the data that we have if it's requested of us. I think that's perhaps an easy thing to do. And the point around universal design and access, I think it's a very interesting point that you make. We are already doing work in this area, but definitely not enough. One of the products or the technologies that we'll demonstrate during the exhibition is a text-to-speech technology. It was actually developed by one of our colleagues. Unfortunately, the colleague is late now, who was visually impaired. To address the issue of how can we use technology to provide access. So we are doing some work in that area, but certainly there's more that needs to be done. And we would like to explore the opportunities to collaborate with yourselves around, what else should be done, guided by your understanding of the need. How can our work be better directed to respond to the most pressing issues, around the issue of universal access and design, including the issue that was raised around dermatology, for people living with albinism. Maybe there are products based on indigenous knowledge systems that can be applied. You know, our guys are involved in bioprospecting. I'm sure my colleague can speak, you know, but these are opportunities for us to work together to say, is there anything that we can do here, you know, given the capabilities that we have in the CSIR and the needs that you are identifying, you know, in terms of the needs of our people. So we welcome the input and will certainly be keen to explore that further. Without going to a specific answer now, I think we welcome the contribution. The issue around in the uptake of solutions developed by the CSIR, by the state minister that you referred to, we encounter challenges with regards to that. You know, if one can speak bluntly, I hope the doors have been closed on this point. There are various constraints that we encounter, Minister. One is that I think I spoke about the relationship we have with the Ministry of Defense and military veterans. You know, the Ministry of Defense and military veterans sees the CSIR as an extension of themselves. You know, when they have a problem, they'll come to us and say, can you do this? There is a certain amount of money which is made available to the CSR on an annual basis. But of course, there are things that we need to deliver for that investment that is made by the Ministry of Defense and military veterans to support, you know, our armed forces on various things. But this is a long-standing arrangement between us. It's not a transactional arrangement. It's a very strategic relationship that we are seen as an extension, you know. Our armed forces, sometimes they'll call us on a Friday and say, we need a solution on Monday because we are deploying to X, Y, and Z. CSR gave us the answer. And we'll work, you know, bend the midnight oil and give the solution to our armed forces on Monday. That's how close we work, you know, with the Ministry of Defense. My colleague here, who is the group executive for production and security. I mean, I mentioned the Executive National Security Program that he attended, which is a program that is you know this better than me. It's for the armed forces to understand the security posture of the country, and this is on the invitation, you know, of the South African National Defence Force that he participated in that program, just to show how close we work, you know, with the Ministry of Defence and military veterans. Unfortunately, it's not like that with other government departments. Our engagements are transactional. They issue a tender, we must bid for the tender just like everybody else. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't win, and that's how it is. We are not seen as if we are part of the state. We are treated the same way as any other private sector company. Now that cannot be. It just cannot be. That's not the way that we should be working with the state, Minister. We'll give examples. You know, when Minister Dlamini Zuma, and she was really a very big champion of the CSR, when she was in Home Affairs and the country needed to develop a smart card, she didn't go and issue a tender. She came to the CSR and said, CSR need to help us to ensure that we get the best solution for this country in terms of our smart ID. My colleague here again, you know, with his team, they went and designed the smart card that we all use. It was designed here at the CSR, all the security features of it. We then used that, the department then used that to go to the market to say, this is the card that we want for South Africa. They would not have been able to do that without the CSR. If they just issued a tender and said, we want a smart card, the vendor will give whatever they have. It might not be suitable for us. It might have the weakest form of security. But because they came to us first, we've got one of the safest smart IDs in the world. But that's the kind of relationship that we are looking for in terms of how we work with government. That we are really seen as an extension of government. That if our Department of Energy has a requirement in terms of a technological solution, they start here because we are created to support the state, you know, to enable the state in terms of the capabilities that we have. Unfortunately, it's not happening like that in the main. And that's the kind of relationship that we want to see. Similarly then, when we develop solutions, we have to go and try and get them adopted by whoever we think can use them. We don't have that problem with defense. almost everything that we do goes directly into supporting our armed forces. Of course, there are also opportunities for using that for other applications. Whether, like for instance, the example I gave of the solution we developed for the Kruger National Park. All of those technologies that you see there, there's a radar there, there's a laser, there's an optical camera, were developed for the military. But now we're finding civilian use of those technologies. So that's the kind of relationship. I get emotional when I talk about this because that is what we need to see happening in terms of how the CSR is viewed by the state. We're not private sector. We are part of the state. So that is the bottleneck that we need to unlock. Minister, when you talk about different ways of thinking, that's what we need. That's what we require, in our view, Minister. You know, Minister Dlamini Zuma used to make a statement that, sometimes the state treats us like, a snake. When a snake gives birth to a child, the little snake is left to fend for itself. She used to say, we are being treated like a baby snake. That is, we're created by the state, but we are left to fend for ourselves to be able to survive. That shouldn't be the case. So that is part of the problem that hopefully, we'll be able to address. And we really appreciate this engagement with your minister, because I think it speaks to this point that we need to be working closely with our government and the government departments. The issues around, graduates that are unemployed, I think all of us have a view on that because it concerns, I can say this without any fear of contradiction, almost everyone here worries about that. We worry about that because of the problem that we see. We worry that because of our own kids. We all have kids, we say these kids are still, where are they going to go? Because we see the problem that our country is facing. And there are many contributing factors to this. I can share my thoughts. Going as far back as our basic education is what is coming out of our basic education, relevant to what our country requires. Even the structure of our education system. Is it necessary for everyone to have a PhD? Maybe we need more welders. We need, those are the kind of skills we need. We need more plumbers. How do we ensure that we've got the right balance? There are so many problems that I think as a country we need to really confront and face to say. And I don't think that, in my view, we can fix this problem without looking at this problem, without looking at it holistically. We can't just say, we need more graduates, let's try and patch there. I think we need to look at this whole system, holistically. So what do we need to do to change our system so that it does better? I mean, we've got people, just to give an example, we have, I don't have the numbers, we have people finishing matric. Where do they go? We know not all of them can be absorbed with our university system. I mean, we've got universities which say they can only take, I don't have the numbers, maybe 8,000 new students or 10,000 new students. And we've got over 100,000 students coming in. Where do they go? So that's why I'm saying that we need to look at this problem systemically. And industry has a very big role to play. I want to make the point that even SANSI, for SANSI to succeed, we need to ensure that we bring industry on board because they create the absorptive capacity that you are referring to, Minister. What are the skills that we need? You spoke about the just transition or the transition that is happening in industry in terms of the future of work. How do we prepare for that? There are programs that we run here in the CSIR. Got things like learning factories, we work with SITAs, to help students coming out of our SITA program to transition to a digital world. Very small scale. The program is much bigger than that. We need to massify, scale those up. You spoke about scaling up also, to ensure that this whole thing starts to come together in a much more coherent manner so that we are able to address these problems that we are facing. So we take the point, we don't have the answer, but we are willing to be part of the discourse and to contribute, towards trying to address these issues, Minister. I mean, the exit opportunities that you referred to. So, I mean, I'm not answering specific questions, but we're reflecting also in terms of our own thoughts around these points, and I'm sure my colleagues might also have a lot to add to that. Please, go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Minister, and the colleagues. So, I think the gist of what you articulate is a problem that we worry about every day. At the Sansi, one of the days I was available, I did attend. So the supply side of work is something that we haven't taken seriously as a country. My point on that day was that we cannot say with any level of comfort that the reason why there is so much unemployment is because people don't know where to find work. The supply side of work is crucial, and we really have to do that. Dr. Lamini and some of the EXCO members, we penned a proposal to our minister at some point. This was a couple of years ago. So in there we were saying it's important that South Africa has a capacity to study supply chains of all products in order to look at which of those do we target creating employment on. There are microchips. There's a question on the future of work. The design of products were nowhere to be found. If we target 200,000 jobs just on the supply design of microchips, and we look at thousands of other products where the minerals are mined here in South Africa, those get beneficiated. South Africa has been talking about beneficiation for donkey years. We have done diddly squat. So now there is an impending disaster. Over 60% unemployment of the youth is a disaster in the making. And really, I was saying on the day that I want to retire in Limpopo very nicely with a thriving economy. With that, I can't. I have kids. They're studying in the sciences. Where are they going to get jobs? If on the supply side we're doing nothing. On the supply side, and the CEO made the point of the holistic look at this thing. The education of these different cohorts, we need to look at that. My take on the future of work is that the fundamentals in terms of understanding the basic sciences are crucial. Instead of understanding the basic mathematics are crucial. We've been doing AI for a long time, machine learning. But we need to find where to play a role in the product, in these tens of thousands of products that I'm talking about. Back to basics. Mathematics is not, I'm a mathematician, by the way. It's not all that hard. But by the way, I found what I will find a good mathematics teacher when I was doing my master's in the United States, because this person could teach anyone mathematics. And it's that simple. But my daughter, at the age of 6, she came to me and said, "Daddy, math is hard." The mother has a PhD in mathematics. I have a PhD in mathematics. Long story short, I mean, she's very good at mathematics now. But going back to these basics is what enables us to be ready for the future of work. It's not any more complicated than that. But we need to look at the entire system. But the supply side, SANSI cannot succeed if we don't look at the supply side. As a country, all these departments, there must be a team bigger than this that is looking at where are we going to create 200 jobs, in what industry, 300,000 jobs. Where are we going to get 10 million jobs in the next 10 years? There must be that effort. We're not doing it. So we cannot be doing everything else and leaving that out. The inclusion of women. By the way, there are activists in in this room. If somebody parks in a handicapped spot, you'll have a very excited executive saying, what are you thinking? If somebody rocks up with a disability and you put your car there, in terms of women, we are activists. We are saying there are good engineering schools globally. In the first instance, we need to start by making sure that we put our people there. We change the cohort, the profile of the workforce, and concurrently change the supply side. Concurrently have a policy framework that is informed by data. We don't use data when we plan. As government, you really don't. And the data is there. Let's depend on that. Minister, you notice that we're incredibly passionate about this, but the solutions are there. Let's work together. In terms of SANSI, I think it's important that we beef up. Even our participation of the CSR, I don't think is where it's supposed to be. CSR must have it must put its A game. You have seen very good people involved, but I don't think it's enough, because this is only the most important thing that we can work on as a country. The issue of youth unemployment, the issue of unemployment, the supply side in terms of jobs, the supply side in terms of skills. And what do we prioritize? We prioritize everything as a country. That is not prioritizing. It's just doing nothing and hoping for the best. I think the Almighty has created a lot of good things. We have access to that. Let's make use of it. Thank you. Thank you, CEO.
Well, thank you very much. Minister, as you can see, we're very passionate about the points that you've raised. And I'm going to perhaps stop here, because I know if I open it up for the rest of my team, we might be going on for the next 20 minutes. I think in the interest of time, Minister, with your permission, I would like to ask that we move to the next item on our agenda, which is the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding. And I wish to invite the Minister to join me on that table over there. Thank you. Honorable Minister, we've completed this part of our program of presentations and discussion. We now move to the next part, which is the exhibition, which we have set up next door to this building. But before we do that, maybe we take a 5-minute, 10-minute body break. What's the time now? It's now 11, let's say 11:40. If we can start at 11:50 for the exhibition. We'll have to be a bit quick on the exhibition so that we are done at the latest by 12:15 to then have lunch and to make time for the next part of the visit. So thank you very much for the engagement so far.